or maybe he is a couple spots, maybe at 12, 13, he's still on the board, and you really thought that he'd be gone in the top 6, 7 picks. And then then the question comes, do you move up and try to get that player that's fallen a little bit?
Belichick was asked how he would characterize this year's quarterback class. He said, it's an interesting group. And Laura, I want to tell you one other thing that Belichick said that I found very interesting. He said Matt Patricia, back with the Patriots, is heavily involved in their pre-draft process.
That is interesting. And listen, I'm really shocked, Mike, that Bill Belichick didn't want to give away his entire plan for the draft there. He was trying to keep it close to the vest. What a shocker. Thanks so much, Mike Reese, for being with us here. Adam, what do you think the plan is for the Patriots at quarterback in the draft?
Well, Laura, I think first and foremost, people forget that Cam Newton is coming off a year in which they went 7-9, in which he didn't go through the offseason program at all, in which he had COVID, in which they lacked offensive firepower, that the team believes it addressed this offseason with the addition of so many offensive weapons. So they believe Cam Newton would get a better, fairer shake this season than he would last season, which I think might reduce some of the urgency. Now, I still think they're in the quarterback market. If they could get the right guy at the right price, they certainly would. And if we look back at Bill Belichick through the years, he's traded up in the first round 4 different times. Most recently in 2012, when he traded up to go get Chandler Jones and Donta Hightower. The other times he traded up, Ty Warren, 2003, Daniel Graham, 2002. He has never traded up for a quarterback in the first round of the NFL draft. So if he did that 2 weeks from now, that would be the first time that he's ever done that as the Patriots head coach. And while, again, it's not out of the question, you heard himself say, essentially, there are only certain players and a certain amount of time they can jump up to go get the quarterback they want.
Yeah, I got a chance to listen to his comments, and I think, the one word that he said, which just keeps ringing in my head, is that, look, it's a fluid situation, and they have to be prepared for all different scenarios. So I think, to me, that means this. Look, they wanted to make sure, especially at quarterback, that they weren't left with nobody. And that's not to call Cam Newton nobody or associate nobody with Cam Newton. I am in agreement with Adam, and I am aware of the fact that, look, they view Cam Newton's play last year in a much different prism, through a much different prism than everyone on the outside. And a lot of it has to do with what Adam laid out. The fact that they signed him late in the process. He got sick with COVID. They had their practice situation disrupted over and over and over again. They were devoid of many, of the types of skills that they want ideally on the outside, on the perimeter, particularly at wideout. And that a lot of that's going to be different this year. So I think they view Cam as a viable option, much more so than people on the outside. But as they get here into the draft, I think Bill, based on the tone and tenor of his comments today, is very much so willing to see how this goes, because he knows that there could be some people available to him that he wasn't anticipating, and that includes quarterback. And I think he is willing to be fluid and kind of adaptable in terms of, do I need to move up? Can I move up? Can I get a certain player? And I think that includes quarterback. And again, that's what makes it very much so intriguing. Will he make that huge jump from 15 to 4, 7, 8? I mean, who knows? Who knows how he's going to feel that night and whether or not the value matches up for him and the price matches up for him. But I think you cannot count them out. But you also can't say they're definitely going to go ahead and make this big move, which is exactly what you would expect from Bill at this point.
Yeah, I mean, history tells us that Bill Belichick doesn't move up and he doesn't take quarterbacks in the first round, right? But if you look at the history in the last couple decades, you have Tom Brady, so you haven't had to move up or you haven't had to take a quarterback in the first round. I think Denver at number 9 is really intriguing. We all know Trevor Lawrence is going 1 to Jacksonville. We all think very strongly that Zach Wilson from BYU is going number 2 to New York. Then there's going to be a quarterback going to San Francisco at 3, whether it's Mac Jones, Justin Fields, Trey Lance. We'll figure it out on draft night. But then Atlanta becomes intriguing. Do they go quarterback because they don't plan on picking it for another time? Or do they go with Kyle Pitts, a tight end, coming out of Florida? And then you look, where's the next spot a quarterback could go? It's definitely 9. So if New England sees one of these two quarterbacks out of the five that we've talked about, and I think it would likely be Lance or Fields still available when they get to pick 7 with Detroit or 8 with Carolina, do they make a move then and say, you know what, let's go up and get the guy that we want for the next decade?
Marcus, let's live in a world where the Patriots end up with Cam Newton as their starter next season and living in a world where we know the weapons that they added in free agency. Are you good with Cam Newton being the Pats starter week 1?
Yeah, I'm good with it because that seems like the scenario that's going to play out, Els. And obviously we know that Cam is not the long-term answer for the New England Patriots, but I do feel like Cam is he's better positioned, obviously, to have a better season. And it goes a lot with what New England did this offseason in adding pieces through free agency and getting guys to get this offense revamped and putting more onus on the fact that they need playmakers, right? That was the thing we talked about with Tom Brady 2 years ago. Even in a 12-win season, we looked at that offense and said that is in no way a Super Bowl or a deep playoff run offense that they put out there. But you signed Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry and Aguilar and Kendrick Bourne. You signed those guys to not only facilitate better offense, but if you got to roll with Cam, he's already in a better position by having those guys available. Look, Bill Belichick still wants to be a balanced football coach. They still want to run the football. They still want to have multiplicity to what they do from an offensive standpoint. And I know we get kind of enamored with these quarterbacks because in the back of our mind, subconsciously, even though we don't want to admit it, we think all of them, we think of all of them in a prism of if they not throwing for 4,500, that's not successful. Well, this plays into that scenario. You facilitate putting your quarterback in the best possible situation. And I believe New England did that by insulating Cam Newton and not asking him to, quote unquote, be Superman, but just manage what they have right now. And if they upgrade, if and when that time presents itself, I'm sure they'll jump at the opportunity.
You know, Adam, Todd mentioned the 9 spot with the Broncos as being a touch point, but what about the 8 spot with the Panthers? Of course, now they got Sam Darnold in their trade from the Jets. Do you think maybe this is a situation where the Patriots need to get there instead of 9 if they're going to get one of these quarterbacks that are in the top 5?
Well, I think 9 basically shines a light on picks 7 and 8. And let's just play this out. If the first 3 picks in the draft, as everybody expects, are quarterbacks, and the Falcons decide to go non-quarterback, which I think seems to be the way it's trending, or trade back, you could see 3 positional players go 4, 5, 6. Now we're seeing the Detroit Lions at 7 and the Carolina Panthers at 8 be the potential trade-up spots for any team that would like to get a quarterback. I know the Panthers have had conversations about moving back. I think the Lions would be open to moving back. So if there's a team that wants to move up for a quarterback, be it Denver at 9, or New England at 15, or Washington, or you come up with the team. Chicago at 20 would love to do that, I'm sure, but probably doesn't have the ammunition to get that far. But if there's a team that would like to come up to get the quarterback, 7, Detroit, Carolina, 8 might be the spots in Carolina. My understanding is it's taking calls on pick number 8 right now.
It's really interesting, and you got to think about this too, Schefter. You know, at Justin Fields' second pro day yesterday, you've got the Panthers there, you've got the Lions there, all this gamesmanship where they're like, yeah, we're interested in Justin Fields too, we're interested in these quarterbacks, just to try and make sure that the Patriots, who were McMahon, on what he had to say about being a Bears QB yesterday.
You know, the Chicago's always been known for their defense, right? Yep. Their defense and their running game. And that's probably all they're ever going to be known for. I think it's where quarterbacks go to die.
Well, say it like you mean it. In Todd McShay's latest mock draft, he had Chicago using their second-round pick on Florida quarterback Kyle Trask, selecting him 52nd overall. So, Adam, I mean, we were just talking about the Bears picking at 20. Yeah, they'd love to try to get up to 10 or 9 or 7 or somewhere up there, but they may not have the capital to get that far. So what do you think about the Bears' plans to draft a quarterback in this draft? What can you tell us?
Laura, the Bears were there at Justin Fields' second pro day yesterday. They've been doing a lot of work on quarterbacks. And yes, they did sign Andy Dalton during free agency, but Andy Dalton is somebody they believe that can play and win this season, but it doesn't preclude them and stop them for looking for that long-term answer for a place where, as Jim McMahon said, quarterbacks have gone to die. And so the Bears are in the quarterback market. The question is there going to be a quarterback there at number 20 that matches up to the value of that pick? And it doesn't seem right now like that will be the case. Then again, we've seen other drafts where quarterbacks have fallen into spots that they weren't projected to go. And if that happens, the Bears will be prepared in the event that they happen to like one of them that slides to their spot. But it also doesn't mean that they're not looking in this draft. I think they are.
Yeah, I mean, Lewis, here's the thing. If you're Kyle Trask and you're like watching the show right now, don't worry. Maybe you'll go there and you won't go to die. But should the Bears, Lewis, be drafting a quarterback, and where?
Yeah, that was harsh by Jim. Man, when he said that, I was like, wow. Yeah, okay. Getting back to what the question is, yeah, they should be drafting a quarterback. But you know what? Listen, they're not going to draft a quarterback at 20 unless, as Adam just alluded to, unless somebody has a surprise slide all the way down to 20. At 20, they need to pick a player who's going to give them immediate return on investment. Because remember now, Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy, they need to win. They need to win in 2020. They need to win in 2020 significantly because they're going to be right there on the hot seat again at the end of this year if they don't get somebody that can help that football team. So I think they're going to be in play for an offensive lineman at that 20 spot. I believe they will draft the quarterback, though, at some point, and they will probably come with that second pick. And I know that they are evaluating quarterbacks hard. They are spending a lot of time seeing if they can get somebody in there that is the future ultimately. But it's not going to matter what the future is if they don't hit on that first-round pick on 20th overall, because someone else will be developing that quarterback they drafted in the second round if they don't get it right from a one-loss record perspective.
Yeah, listen, they pick at 52 overall in the second round. So if it's not one of the first five quarterbacks that we've talked about in the first round, then you get in that second tier. We're talking about Davis Mills from Stanford, Kellen Mond from Texas A&M, and Kyle Trask from Florida. And it's been really interesting now that I've kind of finished all the evaluations and all my grades are done. Talking to GM, some guys are like, you've got Davis Mills too high. You've got him too low. He could go in the second round. He could go in the fourth round. When you get past the first round quarterbacks, there's a lot of different opinions on who these quarterbacks are. But I do think Davis Mills will be very attractive. He only started 11 games at Stanford. But I remember talking to David Shaw, the head coach at Stanford, 2 years ago, and him saying, listen, there's no Andrew Luck. But the closest thing that we've had and that we probably will have for a lot of years is Davis Mills in terms of talent. The problem is Mills couldn't stay healthy. He only started 11 games at Stanford. So you're betting on the potential and the future of Mills versus Mond, who, a 4-year starter, and Trask, who, he sat for 7 years from high school and college, but the last 2 years he was a starter at Florida. So I think Mills is probably the sixth quarterback off the board, and it wouldn't shock me at all if it's at pick 52 or if Chicago decides, you know what, let's move up a little bit in the second round and go get Mills.
Yeah, I mean, the Andrew Luck comparison is really interesting because if anybody's going to know that, it's going to be David Shaw, and that sample size is small to your point, Todd, but if someone wants a guy who's been a veteran and who has played a bunch more games, that would be Kellen Mond, who's also worked with Jimbo Fisher. Let's talk about some draft prospects that are being overlooked on the defensive side in this draft. Marcus, who should we stop sleeping on?
Yeah, let's introduce them to some guys that we haven't talked about much. And my guy's Kelvin Joseph from the University of Kentucky. He was a transfer from LSU, but you see his ability playing in some zone scheme there at Kentucky, staying in phase and being able to pick off Mac Jones with an underthrow to Devontae Smith. Not many people were able to stop this tandem this year in college football. Again, eyes in the backfield, looking, track the football. This guy was recruited as a safety as well as a cornerback. So he brings that multi-dimensional to your secondary as well. Kelvin Joseph, don't sleep on him. He's going to make somebody a better football team.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Jalen Phillips from Miami. And listen, in the scouting community and in the front office community, people know who this defensive end is. They know him very well. And were it not for some of the injury concerns, you can see here just from this highlight reel right here, this guy is a special pass rusher. He is the most polished pass rusher. He is the most ready to rush the passer in the NFL right now. And at 6'5", 250 plus and running sub 4.6 in the 40-yard dash, that's exactly what you're looking for. Were it not for the injury concerns, this guy would be considered a top 10 pick in my estimation.
Yeah, Lewis, I'm going to take a defensive back in your honor. I'm going Asante Samuel. We've talked so much about Patrick Surtain from Alabama and Caleb Farley from Virginia Tech and J.C. Horn from South Carolina. But Asante Samuel, I know he's only 5'10", about 188 pounds, but this guy is twitchy. He can play on the outside. He can play in the slot. He played primarily right cornerback at Florida State, and he shut down every top receiver that they saw. So to me, he's a guy that can come in right away. He knows the NFL game. He's so prepared mentally. He's tough. He's physical. He supports the run. I think Samuel is going to be a steal in round 2.
We're just 2 weeks away from the NFL draft. More draft talk on the way on NFL Live. Our own Kirk Herbstreit sits down with Mac Jones to find out the story behind his be like Tebow mentality. What's this BLT all about?
Be like Tebow. BLT.
Yeah, BLT. I kind of had a script.
A spring game, and keep in mind, Herbie, Reese Davis, and Desmond Howard, the College Game Day crew will be handling the ABC broadcast at the NFL draft. They will be joined by Todd McShay. And so, Todd, is there a comparison with Mac Jones and Tom Brady? You just heard him talking about it there.
I don't want to put the comparison curse on Mac Jones with Tom Brady. I mean, no one wants that, but there are some elements to his game that do compare, right? I mean, the accuracy, the ball placement is outstanding. The movement inside the pocket is what really stood out to me when I first started, studying Mac Jones. Just his ability to slide away from pressure, climb the ladder, and those little things. The football intelligence, having sat with him and talked to him for like a half hour each session for 3 games leading up to games that we were covering. He's as intelligent as a quarterback that I've been around. But the other part that people, I think, overlook is the journey. I mean, look at Tom Brady's journey. He sat behind Brian Griese, who won the first national championship in Michigan in 50 years. And then all of a sudden he becomes the guy. But then Drew Henson comes in, and he's the number 1 recruit in the country, and he has to kind of deal with that and compete with it. And Lloyd Carr is trying to insert Henson in the lineup. And the same thing happened with Mac Jones. Sitting behind Tua Tagovailoa, they're winning national championships, and all of a sudden this guy named Bryce Young's coming in. And Steve Sarkisian told me early in the season that he was the offensive coordinator at that point at Alabama. He said, Todd, I everywhere I went, whether it was a diner or, lunch, dinner, anywhere in public, everyone in Tuscaloosa assumed Bryce Young, this 5-star recruit's coming in, and he's going to be the guy. And every day I showed up, the first guy in the building was Mac Jones. The first guy taking reps and demanding that he was the number 1 guy was Mac Jones. So Mac Jones would not relent that starting job, and I think it speaks to just the mental toughness and what he's been through. And I think that's going to help him in the NFL when he ultimately becomes a top 10, top 15 pick.
No doubt. He's definitely a guy that's ready for this league, not only from the mental standpoint, but also patience, because it takes a while for young quarterbacks to be good in this league, and he has that understanding. And look, I know I've been going crazy about Mac Jones going 3rd, and I still don't think what I've seen from him in college is a 3rd pick value. But what I will say about Mac Jones is he was as impressive as any one of these other quarterbacks that we're talking about being taken in the 1st round. Now, he was surrounded by a lot of talent, but what team doesn't want to surround their quarterback with a lot of talent? He did what he had to do with the weapons at his disposal and went on to win a national championship and break passing records. The resiliency, the amount of patience, the ability to play this game from the neck up is going to serve him well on the next level. I have to see, though, if this athleticism issue becomes an issue for him. Because, look, we can talk about Tom Brady all we want. Tom Brady threw 3 interceptions against the Green Bay Packers. We could talk about Drew Brees all we want. He threw 3 interceptions against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So those type of defenses will be waiting on Mac Jones. Mac Jones will be a successful quarterback in this league, I believe. But there will be a lot of pressure attached to where he'll be drafted, and he'll be in a division with some people that can get after it. And I'll just want to see if that athleticism creates a problem for him on the next level.
Yeah, look, the great Bill Walsh, who I read everything I get my hands on that he has ever written, says this about quarterbacks. And he says that the whole, more times than not, is greater than the sum of its parts. Some of the parts, rather. And really what he's referring to is this. So I understand, like, at this time of year, because we're not actually watching the game, we're just looking at individual players one-on-one and just looking at their individual traits. We look at arm strength, height, weight, speed. We look at individual workouts, and we forget about the fact that this is a team game that really involves, a lot of thinking and a lot of mental resilience and a lot of instinctiveness and a lot of timely pressurized decision making, particularly at quarterback. And when you're talking about the whole being greater than the sum of its parts, the one thing that we can't really quantify at this time of year is that intangible that Mac was talking about, is that ability to, at the most crucial moments, summon up your best performance over and over and over again within a greater team context. It's not who's going to throw the football the furthest, who's going to hit the prettiest 7 route in a workout and throw it to where everybody's sitting there going, ooh, ah. That's not what you're judged by once the games start getting played. The game is how do you perform within the context of the structure that is surrounding you and in the structure of the play call that coaches are playing. This is the kind of thing I've been putting myself through as far as thinking through this as to why San Francisco could possibly arrive at drafting a quarterback who everybody feels as though he doesn't have the highest upside of all these quarterbacks. Why would they draft him at number 3? I think they're thinking along those lines, that the whole of Mac Jones is greater than the sum of his individual parts. And the whole, as far as what he has put on tape and what he has shown so far, is I'm a guy who you can't overload with information. I'm a guy who has risen to the occasion over and over and over again, both in the team context and in the individual competition context, meaning I didn't run from Alabama. I fought off all comers, and I won. And then I took us to the mountaintop, even when I didn't have all of my weapons. And you know what? I'm going to continue to do that. Maybe that's what San Francisco's betting on. We'll see soon.
Yeah, Louis, I'm curious, because you could be a general manager one day. What if you're the San Francisco 49ers GM, and you're sitting there and Trevor Lawrence goes 1, Zach Wilson goes 2? Are you taking Mac at 3, or are you taking Trey Lance or Justin Fields?
Look, I'll tell you this. Right from the very beginning of this, I said that either Trey Lance or Justin Fields I thought would fit perfectly with what Kyle likes to do offensively. Trey Lance in particular, of all these quarterbacks, I think is the guy, especially in within the context of this kind of offense, could have it like an all-pro, like this legendary type of career. He is the guy who I gravitate towards in this scenario, that being Trey Lance. But that being said, I tell you this too. I spend as much time trying to figure out how people, are able to identify quarterbacks on a consistent basis and what it is that the great play callers and great quarterback developers are looking for, because it's such a hard position to evaluate. I can see why San Francisco is going down the road of Mac Jones, but I personally love Trey Lance.
Yeah, San Francisco's in a position where if they think Mac Jones guys can come right in and run that system and run that offense the way that they want him to, and maybe Trey Lance is a little more of a project just because he hasn't had as much playing time that they liked in the sense of what he could do, that could be where they're sitting, but I wouldn't be shocked if they pick Trey Lance. Adam Schefter somewhere saying they're going to pick Mac Jones. Anyway, he's right here, actually. Now to our top stories around the NFL, everything you need to know right now. Adam, we're going to start you on Justin Fields, his second pro day yesterday.
What was interesting to me about this pro day, Laura, was the fact that it was advertised as the 49ers attending, the Patriots attending, the Panthers attending, and there were a lot more teams in attendance to watch Justin Fields at his second pro day than you would have thought. A lot of the league, half the league perhaps, there to watch a guy that very well could be a top 10, top 5 overall pick. We'll see how this shakes out. And earlier today, the Seattle Seahawks reached agreement with Aldon Smith on a 1-year deal. You remember last year, the Seahawks expressed some interest in trying to trade for him. Today, they managed to land him on a 1-year minimum type contract. So he will go to Seattle, try to add some pass rush to the Seahawks defense. The Seahawks pick up the former Cowboy pass rusher, Aldon Smith.
Yeah, Adam, I'm sure you saw this. Russell Wilson was tweeting out about Aldon Smith in this signing. He said, let's go. I'm not going to try to sound like Russ. But anyway, welcome to the squad, Aldon. He likes it, apparently. We'll see if that makes Russ happy. Hey, when we return, really tough division, Marcus, when you look at the NFC West and the way that these teams are stacking their rosters up. You see what the Rams did, getting Matthew Stafford. Where do you see this Cardinals team after the offseason they've put together and what they can do in the draft if they get Farley?
Could sneak in there and be the team that wins this division. And I know that's saying a lot, with San Francisco, Seattle, and obviously the Los Angeles Rams getting Matt Stafford. But this is crazy intriguing to me because you see throughout the NFC West these teams jockeying for position to think that they are the best team once the season starts. Obviously, Matt Stafford coming over at quarterback. We know the situation in Seattle with Russ and the things that he feels they need to address, but they still have DK Metcalf and just locked up Tyler Lockett. And then you get to the San Francisco 49ers. Obviously talking about Mac Jones, but that team was depleted injury-wise last year. So I expect them to rebound. But the Arizona Cardinals, with what Kyler Murray was doing before he was injured, and after the injury I have my concerns because it showed the limitations. But bringing in DeAndre Hopkins through a trade, Christian Kirk, who we showing here, signing James Conner, Cliff Kingsbury wanted to go to the run a little bit. There is an arms race happening in the NFC West. And taking Farley potentially in the first round, who arguably is the best corner in this draft, if it had not been for the medical, could put Arizona once again, another move, putting them in position to take stronghold and be the number one team in this division. And I don't want anybody to forget that Chandler Jones was injured last year.
Good point.
He will be back. One of the league's best pass rushers will be back for the Arizona Cardinals as well. Be careful about talking about the NFC West and the Rams or the San Francisco 49ers alone. Arizona Cardinals making moves.
Yeah, Chandler Jones' numbers were off the charts before he was injured. All right, so you mentioned the Seahawks briefly. Lewis, you think the Seahawks are falling behind in this division as everybody else keeps getting better?
I think they better make sure that they don't that they don't rest on their laurels, so to speak. Laura, I think they need to make sure that they're making the kind of moves that keep pace with all the other improvements that are being made in the rest of the division. And sometimes that isn't necessarily, just about personnel acquisition. It's just about philosophical approach and the harmony that is taking that you're creating within the building. And obviously there's enough smoke coming out of that place that leads you to believe that there's some trouble that is brewing underneath the foundation here as far as the players. It starts with Russell Wilson making some of the comments that he's made. Tyler Lockett now chimes in about the fact that why over the first third of the season weren't we doing the same things in the last third of the season? Why did we change philosophically? They just need to be careful because as Mark has already laid out, this division is getting stronger and stronger, and they have some teams that are absolutely exploding in terms of potential.
Yeah, in that first third of the season, a lot of us had the Seahawks potentially making it to the Super Bowl. Russell Wilson was the MVP, the runaway favorite. So yeah, why change? Don't. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I couldn't remember what that was. All right, listen, we are not done yet on NFL Live. Trevor Lawrence had some comments that you do not want to miss. Find out what our team thinks about his mentality and what he recently revealed. That's coming up next.
Anything could happen.